Welcome to the Consumer Law elective. I'm going to be the module leader this year and I hope you enjoy the slides. I'm going to get out of your way now so you can see them. That's who I am, the module leader for this elective in Consumer Law. Now I'm going to start by giving you a little bit of a mild warning that I'm going to assume some knowledge of English law. You can see from the slide that I will assume that you've grasped from what the content of our business law elective is, a first year module that many of you will have taken, some of you perhaps not. That is the content that I'm talking about. If you haven't got this background and knowledge, I'm not going to throw you out. I'm just going to give you a warning in advance that you might struggle with it. So there's no reason why you shouldn't do some background reading before you join the elective, but I will not be starting at the basement level. I'll be assuming some prior knowledge. Now this module runs in a fairly typical way. There's a 2-hour slot, which we call a lecture slot, but there's no way in the world I'm going to talk for 2 hours. I get bored, you get bored, it gets boring. But I will talk for as long as I've got some enthusiasm left for the topic. You're going to enjoy this module. I don't do tutorials. Tutorials are a waste of life. I set something, you don't do it. You probably don't even turn up. What I do, however, is offer surgeries to assist you in preparation for the massively high score you're going to make on this module, and I'll explain that as we go along. This is a course on consumer law. It is a fairly typical outline of a course, but the content is not constant. I'm a freelance journalist. I work for the BBC on radio and on television, and I use this module to show you not what was dealt with in 1893 by the then Sale of Goods Act, but what's happening now, this week. And you can keep up with that because I write a weekly column for the local paper, the Plymouth Herald. My column's on Thursdays, don't miss it. You'll be able to find it wrapping your fish and chips on Friday. The elective is about law that affects us all, every day. We're all consumers, all the time. So logically, the course content would be covering the sale of goods, covering the supply of services, covering the law relating to product liability, a phrase you may not be familiar with, but this area of the law is concerned with liability for hurting people, whether or not they're your buyers. You don't have to have bought it. If it hurts you, you may be able to bring a claim. You may be able to bring a claim on your own behalf and on behalf of thousands of others. It's an intriguing area of law. We'll be looking at consumer safety and the various regulations that apply to that. We'll be looking at some fairly new law banning unfair commercial practices. And we'll look at that in some detail because it's got some great stories. So we won't just be talking about broken toasters and lousy holidays, which is not to say that we won't be mentioning broken toasters and lousy holidays, but they won't be the sum total of what we deal with. You'll want to know how to do brilliantly. Part of your final year, it's important to be brilliant. How do you behave so that you get massively increased marks in your final year where it really counts? What's the assessment of this module? It comes in 2 parts. There is an in-class test. If you're going to do well in that, you need to know some law. So you need to show up to class, you need to take notes, you need to keep up. And if you can't do all of those things, you need to come and talk to me because I'm available to you to help you do brilliantly on this module. So a 45-minute, that's as long as it should take, but I don't put strict time limits on it. It's not like a formal sit down and shut up exam. I give you enough time to write as much as you know. Some of you won't need much time, some of you will have to drag out and throw out of the room at the end because you're still writing 2 hours later. We can deal with the details of that as we work through the elective. The second, as you'll see, the more valuable to you part of this assessment is a project. Now, this is a project that gives you the opportunity to go and spend time looking up something that has always interested you. This is an occasion where someone is going to give you 60% of a module mark simply for doing something you wanted to do anyway. What a deal. To give you an idea of the breadth of the projects that have been dealt with over the past few years, you can see all of those topics people have chosen. You can see how topical some of them have been. The horse meat scandal, the current arguments about drugs, whether or not they're legal, if they're not yet illegal, but they're still damaging people, the debate on legal highs. Something that the government is trying to deal with right at the moment, the secondary ticket market. Some of you may have been victims of that. Romance scams, something that you perhaps, and I hope, have not fallen for, you may be unaware of. There was a man that worked at this university and he had 3, count them, degrees, and he fell for a romance scam and it cost him 18,000 English pounds. We can talk about those things if you want. There are usually students on this elective that do football or rugby, sporting generally orientated projects. It's not unusual for there to be one based in the advertising industry. Does sex sell? Well, probably. A tan to die for, airbrush to fake, and one on food. Would you like some connective tissue with those chicken nuggets? Just going back one, this in-class test, this scene case study, during the lecture programme, I'll be giving out a series, not a long series, maybe 4, 5, 6, self-assessment exercises. They're just one-page kind of problem questions, and you should be able to do all of those as we work through the course, because one of those will be this end-of-term test. Not something like it, not something based on them, but one of them. So you will have seen the material that we're going to be testing you on at the end of this module. And subject to you getting in touch with me, and I'm easily found, actually I'm easily looked for rather than easily found, that is